3 months after I canceled my renter's insurance to save $200, a pipe burst in the apartment above mine. Water poured through my ceiling like a waterfall. Everything I owned was destroyed. $8,000 worth of it. That's when everything changed for me. That's when I started thinking about money differently. My name is Ryan, and this is how being smart about money almost cost me everything. It all began on a Tuesday, me staring at my bank account like I always did when times got tough, scouring for ways to cut expenses. And then I saw it, renter's insurance, $200 a year to renew. $200. That's 2 weeks worth of groceries. That's the electric bill and internet bill combined. That's real money. The thought crossed my mind, do I really need this? I'd been living there for 2 years. Nothing bad had ever happened. Good neighbors, good building, good landlord. Felt like I was throwing money away, like buying a lottery ticket where the prize is bad things happening to me. I canceled it. Watched that $200 credit appear in my account a few days later. Felt like I'd won the battle, like I'd finally figured out what everyone else was missing, like I'd taken control of my finances, used it to pay off a credit card, felt even better, felt productive, felt responsible. 3 months later, got a call from my landlord, 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. He sounded frazzled. There's a situation. You need to come home. The drive home, my heart racing with what could possibly mean situation. Opened the door to my apartment. Water everywhere. The ceiling was dripping. Carpet was soaked. Furniture was ruined. My laptop sitting in a puddle of water, dead. 3 years of files gone. Bed was soaked through. Couch looked like a sponge. Everything that wasn't in a closet, ruined or damaged beyond repair. Standing there in the doorway, watching water drip from my ceiling. One thought, oh no. The landlord's insurance would cover the building, fix the pipe, fix my ceiling, dry out the walls. My stuff? That was on me, because I didn't have renter's insurance anymore. $8,000 in damage. Didn't have $8,000. Barely had $1,000 in savings. I borrowed $3,000 from my parents at 28 years old. Had to explain why I didn't have insurance, hearing the disappointment in their voices. Slept on an air mattress for 6 months. Used a friend's old laptop that sounded like a helicopter taking off. All of that misery, all of that stress and shame and financial devastation to save $200. But what I didn't understand at the time went deeper. This wasn't just about renter's insurance. It was a pattern I see people destroy themselves with every single day. We optimize for the wrong thing. Save pennies, lose dollars. Focus on small, visible costs while ignoring massive, invisible risks. Think we're being clever when we're actually being foolish. Convince ourselves we're taking control when we're really just setting ourselves up for disaster. The flood was my wake-up call. It forced me to realize that I was sabotaging myself financially, one smart, cheap move at a time. Let me show you what I learned, the costly lessons I learned. Because if I can save just one person from their own $8,000 disaster, maybe all of this will have been worth it. The insurance trap. The psychology of insurance is impossible. When it works, you feel like you've been ripped off. When it doesn't work, you're ruined. No-win situation our brains can't quite process correctly. Pay for car insurance for 10 years and never have an accident? Don't feel lucky. Don't feel safe. Feel scammed. Paid out tens of thousands of dollars for nothing. Money down a black hole. But forego car insurance and wreck your car? Lose everything. Lawsuits pending. May lose your license. Standing there thinking, how did I just manage to be so stupid? Either you got scammed or you're stupid. That's the psychological catch-22 of insurance. And that's why so many people don't have it. Not because they can't afford it, because spending money on something you never use feels like a psychological loss. Like losing every single month. I was 28 when that pipe burst, making $55,000 a year. Could have easily afforded $200 a year for renter's insurance. Less than $17 a month. Less than 2 lunches out. Less than 1 streaming service. But talked myself out of it. Told myself it was a waste. Maybe even a scam. For my entire life, I'd never had renter's insurance. Never had insurance of any kind, really. Never had a car accident. Never had a medical emergency. Never had any kind of disaster that insurance would have helped with. In my head, insurance was just this thing that other people needed. Unlucky people. Careless people. Not me. That's the trap. Just because something hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't happen. But our brains don't work that way. Terrible at understanding risk. Think linearly. Extrapolate from the past without considering randomness. It hasn't happened yet, so it probably won't, even though we know, intellectually, that's not how probability works. Insurance companies know this. They know most people won't file claims. They're betting on it. That's literally their business model. But what I didn't understand, that's exactly how insurance is supposed to work. Not a scam, a collective risk pool. Everyone pays a little, so the few who get hit with disaster don't lose everything. One of humanity's best inventions, how we manage catastrophic risk in a civilized society. Yet it feels like a scam when you're paying and not claiming. Feels like you're the sucker. After I canceled renter's insurance, told a few friends about it, like it was this smart financial move, this life hack, saving $200 a year by not paying for insurance I never use. Most of them nodded along. A few even said they were thinking of doing the same because it sounded smart, made sense. Nobody said, dude, that's incredibly risky. Nobody warned me. When the pipe burst and I told those same friends, you know what they said? Did your renter's insurance cover it? I told them I'd canceled it. See their faces go from sympathetic to confused to this strange, uncomfortable realization that I'd made this happen to myself. A friend actually said, wait, you canceled your insurance? Why would you do that? Same friend who'd nodded in agreement 3 months prior. The actual formula isn't how likely is this to happen. The actual formula is, can I survive this if it happens? The truth is, most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, can't survive the worst case scenario without insurance. Don't have $8,000 just lying around to replace everything we own. Don't have $50,000 to cover a hospital stay. Don't have $30,000 to replace a wrecked car. One disaster away from bankruptcy. Insurance is the only thing between us and bankruptcy. When I lost $8,000 worth of property, I had less than $1,000 in savings. Had to borrow money from family. Embarrassing. Used credit cards, still paying it off. Lived with half my stuff broken and half replaced for a year. All to save $200, $17 a month. Consider what $17 a month actually is. 3 cups of coffee, 1 movie ticket, half a pizza delivery. Nothing. But $8,000? That's a disaster. A life changer. Thought I was being clever. Thought I was outsmarting insurance companies. Thought I was taking back control. Wasn't being clever. I was being arrogant. Thinking I could predict the future. Taking a risk with money I couldn't afford to lose. The question you have to ask yourself for every insurance decision is this. If the worst case scenario happens tomorrow, can I survive it without going into debt or financial ruin? Be honest. Not could I technically scrape together the money somehow, but can I handle this without derailing my life? If the answer is no, get the insurance immediately. A mental trick that helped me. Don't think of insurance as paying for nothing. Think of it as paying for nothing bad happening. Not buying a product, buying protection, buying the ability to sleep at night, knowing if disaster strikes, you won't lose everything. That's not nothing. That's priceless. Have renter's insurance now. Had it for 6 years. Never filed a claim. Don't feel like I'm wasting money. Feel relieved. Every month that $17 charge hits, and I think, good, I'm covered. If something happens, I'll be okay. Best $17 I spend every month. The hidden cost of cheap. After the flood, I started noticing something. I was making the same mistake everywhere. Buying the cheapest phone plan, even though it had terrible coverage. Buying the cheapest shoes, even though they fell apart in 3 months. Buying the cheapest anything, basically, because it felt like I was winning, but I wasn't winning. I was losing, because cheap has a cost. It's just hidden. The cheap phone plan meant I missed important work calls because I had no signal. The cheap shoes meant I had to buy new ones twice as often. The cheap everything meant I was constantly replacing, repairing, and dealing with frustration. And when you add it all up, I was spending more money being cheap than I would have spent just buying quality in the first place. There's this quote I love. "I'm too poor to buy cheap things." It sounds backwards, right? But it's true. Cheap things cost more in the long run. They break faster. They perform worse. They create problems that require money to fix. Let me give you an example. I needed new running shoes. Found a pair on clearance for $35. Great deal, right? Except the cushioning was terrible, and the stitching started coming apart after a month, and they gave me shin splints that took weeks to heal. 6 months later, I bought proper running shoes for $120. Still wearing them 2 years later. They're still in great shape. Cushioning held up, no injuries. Let's calculate this. The $35 shoes cost me $35 plus weeks of pain. The $120 shoes cost me $60 per year so far, and counting. That's not even factoring in the doctor visit for the shin splints. Understanding this changes everything. We think frugality means buying the cheapest option, but real frugality is about cost per use. It's about total lifetime value. It's about understanding that sometimes spending more upfront saves you money over time. This isn't about being fancy. This isn't about buying luxury. It's about calculating correctly. Before you make a purchase, ask yourself, how long will this last? How much will it cost me per use? Will I have to replace this soon? If the cheaper alternative means you'll be going back to the store in 6 months, it's not cheap. The $20 decision that became a $2,000 problem. This one still makes me mad at myself, even to this day, because I knew better, and I chose to ignore it anyway. I had a strange noise in my car, a little squeak when I braked. Just a little, just a faint, high-pitched squeak when I stopped. It sounded like nothing, maybe just a little dust or debris in the brake pads, maybe just the weather. It was subtle enough that I could just ignore it. The noise didn't go away. It got louder, more insistent. Every time I braked, it was there. Squeak, squeak, squeak. My friend Mark, who knows a lot about cars, was riding with me one day and he heard it. He immediately said, "Dude, you need to get that checked. Squeaking brakes are no good. That's your brake pads wearing out." I looked up how much a brake check would cost, about $20 at the shop down the street from my apartment, sometimes free if you got the work done there. But I thought, I don't have time for this. It's probably nothing. The brakes are still working, the car is still stopping, it's just a little noise. I'll take care of it next month when I'm not so busy. The next month arrived. I forgot about it. Life happened. Stress at work, my own issues, the usual madness. The squeaking went on, got louder. People waiting at traffic lights could have heard it. I kept telling myself I'd get it checked. Next week, next paycheck. When things calmed down. Always someday, never today. 3 months after Mark first warned me, I'm driving home from work on the highway. Traffic is bad. I'm moving at 60 miles per hour. I press the brake pedal and nothing happens. I press harder, still nothing. The pedal goes all the way to the floor, but the car just keeps going at full speed. Panic. Pure, absolute panic. I'm swerving between cars, trying not to hit anyone, pumping the brakes like a maniac, praying something catches. I pull the emergency brake, hard. The car starts to slow down, but not soon enough. I'm still moving at 40, then 30, then 20. I manage to get to the shoulder without hitting anyone. My heart is racing so hard I can feel it in my throat. My hands are shaking. I sit there for 10 minutes just trying to catch my breath again. Getting the car towed ended up costing me $150 because I wasn't a AAA member. Another stupid, cheap decision coming back to haunt me. The mechanic looked at my brakes and just shook his head. The brake pads weren't just worn out. They were gone, completely, metal on metal. They'd worn through and damaged the rotors, damaged the calipers, damaged everything. What could have been a simple $150 brake pad job ended up being a full $2,000 brake system overhaul. New pads, new rotors, new calipers, and all the labor to go along with it. All because I didn't want to shell out $20 for an inspection. But that's not even true. All because I didn't want to spend the time, because even $20 seemed like too much of an investment in a problem that didn't feel pressing at the time. This is what I like to call the procrastination tax. It's the additional cost you pay when you put off fixing small problems until they become huge problems. And to be honest, it's one of the costliest habits you can have. More costly than buying lattes every day. More costly than having a Netflix subscription you barely use. Procrastination is compounded. The problem doesn't remain the same size. It escalates, it worsens, it becomes more costly. Leaks become floods, hairline fractures become structural damage, stomach aches become emergency surgeries, strained relationships become divorces. The sooner you can fix a problem, the less it will cost you. This is true for everything. Cars, houses, health, relationships, careers, everything. But we don't live this way. We know it intellectually, but we don't live it. We ignore the check engine light until the engine blows. We skip the dentist until we need a root canal. We don't fix the leaky faucet until it ruins the kitchen with water damage. We put off hard conversations until the relationship is over. And every single time, we pay the procrastination tax. We pay exponentially more than we would have paid if we just fixed it when it was small. Since the brake problem, I've noticed this happening everywhere in my life. I had a small crack in my phone screen, didn't get it fixed. It still works, it's just cosmetic. The crack spread. Eventually, the whole screen shattered and I had to replace the whole phone. $800 instead of $80. I had a weird pain in my shoulder, didn't go to the doctor. It's probably nothing, it'll go away. It didn't go away. It got worse. Turned out I had a minor rotator cuff injury that became a major rotator cuff injury because I kept using it without treatment. Ended up needing physical therapy for 6 months. $1,200 in copays instead of one $30 doctor visit. I noticed my apartment lease was coming up for renewal with a rent increase. Meant to look for a new place, didn't get around to it. Ended up auto-renewing at a higher rate because I missed the notice period. Lost $2,400 over the next year because I procrastinated on spending one weekend looking at apartments. The procrastination tax is everywhere. It's invisible until you start looking for it, and then you see it in every corner of your life. Understanding this matters. Prevention costs pennies, repair costs dollars, replacement costs fortunes. This isn't just a catchy phrase, it's literal truth. The math always works out this way, always. A $20 brake inspection prevents a $2,000 brake replacement. A $30 doctor visit prevents a $1,200 physical therapy bill. An $80 screen repair prevents an $800 phone replacement. The sooner you can solve a problem, the less it will cost you to solve it. Every single time, no exceptions. And still, we procrastinate. We still put it off. We still tell ourselves it can wait. Why? Because it's not an emergency. Because it's not yelling at us. Because it's just this thing in the background that we can just ignore. Until we can't. Until it's an emergency. Until we're sitting on the side of the road with broken brakes, wondering how we let it get this bad. When you notice something is off, set a deadline right now. I will check this out by Friday. Put it on your calendar. Set a reminder. Make it an actual appointment. Don't let it slide into someday, or when I get around to it, or next month when I'm not so busy. Because you won't be less busy. You'll never have time. And the problem will just keep getting worse. I have a new rule for myself. If something could be a problem, I have 1 week to either check it out or convince myself it's definitely not a problem. 1 week, that's it. Weird noise in the car, scheduled for inspection in 1 week. Weird pain that lingers, doctor appointment in 1 week. Potential problem with anything expensive or important, 1 week to fix it. This has saved me thousands of dollars, maybe tens of thousands, because I'm catching problems when they're $20 problems instead of waiting until they're $2,000 problems. Is it inconvenient at times? Yes. Do I sometimes spend $20 investigating a lead that turns out to be nothing? Yes. But I'll settle for that instead. I'll take a dozen false alarms over one catastrophic failure. It's the catastrophic failures that ruin you. Those are the ones you can't easily recover from. $20 now or $2,000 later. That's the easiest financial decision you'll ever make. And yet, I made a mistake. And I'm sure you have too. Don't let the procrastination tax ruin your finances. Take care of problems when they're small. Trust me, future you will thank you. The false economy of time. After all of these costly mistakes, I decided to start tracking where my savings were actually going. And what I found was interesting. A lot of my frugal decisions weren't saving me money. They were wasting my time. Like, I'd take a 30-minute detour to save $5 on gas, or spend 2 hours researching to save $10 on a toaster, or do it myself instead of hiring a professional, and then spend an entire weekend trying to fix my own mistakes. Time is money. We all know this. But we don't treat it like it's true. If you make $25 an hour and you spend 2 hours to save $10, you just lost $40 in opportunity cost. You could have worked 2 hours and made $50, then paid the extra $10 and still come out $40 ahead. But we don't think like that. We think I saved $10 without considering the cost of our time. I used to cut my own hair to save $20. It took me 45 minutes and it looked awful and I'd feel embarrassed for weeks. Then I'd finally go to a barber and pay $30 to fix it. I saved $20 and then spent $30 plus 45 minutes of my time plus weeks of looking bad and feeling bad. Brilliant. Now I just pay the $20 and move on with my life. And honestly, it's worth way more than $20 to not have to think about it. Your time is finite and valuable. Every hour you spend trying to save a few dollars is an hour you're not spending on things that actually matter. Your career, your family, your health, your happiness. There's a difference between being frugal and being penny wise and pound foolish. Calculate your hourly rate, salary divided by 2,000 if you work full-time. Then ask, would I pay someone my hourly rate to do this task? If yes, outsource it. If no, do it yourself. This simple question will save you countless hours of wasted time on false economies. The catastrophic cost of ignoring expertise. This one is probably the most expensive lesson I learned. I needed some electrical work done in my apartment. Just a few outlets that weren't working. I got a quote from a licensed electrician, $300. That seemed ridiculous for something so simple. I Googled it, watched a few YouTube videos, and decided to do it myself. Big mistake. I accidentally swapped some wires, started a small electrical fire. Didn't burn the building down, thank God, but it did set off the fire alarm. The fire department showed up, and I got a $500 fine from the building for doing unauthorized electrical work. And to top it all off, I still had to pay an electrician to come in and clean up the mess I made. He charged me $450 because it was an emergency job. I tried to save $300 and ended up paying $950, plus the embarrassment of having to explain to my neighbors why the fire department showed up. What I learned? Expertise is worth something. When you pay someone to do something for you, you're not just paying for their time, you're paying for their years of education, their knowledge, their insurance, their equipment, and their ability to not set your building on fire. And when you decide to DIY something you don't know the first thing about, you're not saving money, you're gambling, and the house always wins. Now, I'm not saying you should pay professionals to do everything for you. I'm saying you need to know your limits. Can you paint a room? Yeah, probably. Can you rewire your electrical system? Probably not. Can you cook a meal? Sure. Can you do your own root canal? Please don't. The price of ignorance is almost always higher than the price of expertise. Professionals are professionals for a reason. They know stuff you don't. They can do things you can't. And trying to save money by doing it yourself when you have no idea what you're doing is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. Before you DIY anything important, ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. Do I know what I'm doing to do it right? 2. Do I have the equipment to do it safely? And 3. What's the worst that could happen if I screw this up? If you can't answer all 3 with confidence, pay a professional. The catastrophic cost of small bad decisions. This is where it all comes together. None of these choices felt apocalyptic at the time. Canceling renter's insurance saved $200. Not investigating the car noise saved $20. Doing my own electrical work saved $300. Each choice in and of itself was a good one, a smart one, a frugal one, but not in context. In context, they were part of a larger pattern, a pattern of optimizing for the short-term visible cost while ignoring the long-term invisible risk. And over the course of 2 years, this pattern has cost me more than $15,000. Here's how it breaks down. Not having renter's insurance, $8,000 worth of lost property. Making cheap purchases that had to be replaced, about $1,500 total. Not taking the car in for maintenance, $2,000. DIY disasters, $1,200. Time wasted on false economies, can't even begin to calculate it, but it's a lot. $15,000 because I was trying to be smart with money. And the kicker? If I'd made the opposite choice in each of these cases, paid for insurance, bought quality, taken the car in early, hired professionals, I'd have spent maybe $2,000 total. I'd have saved $13,000 by spending $2,000. Think about that. This is what financial experts mean when they say be penny wise and pound foolish. You're saving pennies on pennies while hemorrhaging pounds on pounds. And the kicker? You're not even aware of it happening because each penny wise decision is justified. Each one has a good reason. I can't afford insurance right now. This cheap version is fine. I don't have time to get that checked. But when you look at the bigger picture, it's nuts. It's financial self-sabotage. Your financial well-being isn't based on one big decision. It's based on hundreds of small decisions over time. And if those small decisions are all optimizing for the wrong thing, you're going to lose. Slowly at first, then all at once. Start tracking your savings for 1 month. Write down every time you make the cheaper choice or forego something to save a buck. Then, 6 months later, go back and see how many of those choices actually saved you money versus how many blew up into bigger expenses. The trend will blow your mind. What expensive really means. As a result of all this, I had to relearn what expensive means to me because I realized expensive isn't about the price tag. It's about the total cost of ownership. A $200 insurance policy that saves an $8,000 loss isn't expensive. It's the cheapest thing you could possibly buy. A $120 pair of running shoes that last 2 years isn't expensive. The $35 pair that lasts a month is expensive. A $300 electrician who saves saves you from a $950 disaster isn't expensive. Doing it yourself is expensive. But once you begin to think about it in this manner, everything changes. You stop thinking about prices and start thinking about value. You stop asking, how much does this cost? And start asking, what will this cost me if I don't do it? And let's be real, this paradigm shift is what saved my financial life. I began to purchase higher quality items and buy them less often. I began to pay for preventative maintenance instead of waiting for catastrophic repairs. I began to invest in insurance and expertise and time-saving services. And guess what? I began to spend less money in total because I wasn't constantly paying for the expensive consequences of cheap choices. My stress levels decreased, my bank account increased, my quality of life skyrocketed. All because I finally grasped what expensive means. If you're always picking the cheapest option, you're probably making the most expensive decision because cheap things break, cheap solutions fail, and the cost of fixing those failures is almost always more than the cost of doing it right the first time. Think of every purchase as, what's this really gonna cost me? Add in the price, the time, the hassle, the replacement cost, the opportunity cost, and the risk cost. When you add all that up, the expensive option is almost always the cheapest. How to actually save money without destroying your life. But after learning all these lessons the hard way, I had to ask myself, how do you actually save money without falling into these traps? Because I still had to be financially responsible. I still had to live within my means. I just had to do it in a way that didn't blow up in my face. What I learned, first, distinguish between worth it and not worth it. Some things are worth spending money on. Health, safety, prevention, expertise, time saving, quality things you use every day. These are investments, not expenses. Other things aren't worth spending money on. Status symbols, convenience you don't need, features you won't use, brands that charge extra for a logo. The trick is to know the difference. I'll spend money on expensive running shoes because I run every day, and cheap ones will ruin my knees. But I'll spend money on cheap phone cases because I'm going to break them anyway, and I don't care what they look like. Second, use the cost per use equation. Before you buy something, estimate how many times you'll use it and divide the price by that number. A $200 winter coat that you'll use 100 times a year for 5 years, that's 40 cents per use. Worth it. A $30 specialty kitchen gadget that you'll use twice, that's $15 per use. Not worth it. This equation has saved me so much money by keeping me from buying impulse purchases of things that seem cheap but are actually expensive because I'll never use them. Third, pay for prevention, not repair. It costs less to maintain your car than to fix it when it breaks down. It costs less to go to the dentist for a cleaning than for a root canal. It costs less to buy good shoes than to go to the podiatrist. Figure out what you need to pay for in your life to prevent problems and budget for it. It always costs less than if you waited until the problem turned into a disaster. Fourth, pay for expertise on important things. If it has to do with your health, your safety, your legal rights, or your home, pay for a professional. The cost of doing it wrong is too high. But for non-important stuff, YouTube it, learn it, do it yourself. Just know which one you're doing. Fifth, create an emergency fund. This is the game changer. The reason I made so many poor, cheap choices was because I didn't have an emergency fund. Every expense was a crisis. But when I finally saved up $1,000, I could breathe again. I could handle small emergencies without losing my mind. I could make better choices because I wasn't living in a state of emergency. Saving money isn't about deprivation. It's about optimization. It's about spending money on what matters and not spending money on what doesn't. It's about playing the long game, not the short game. Make 2 lists. Things worth spending money on in my life and things not worth spending money on in my life. Be honest, then budget accordingly. You'll find you can afford the important things if you stop wasting money on the unimportant things. The price of something is more than just the cost. It's the cost, plus the risk, plus the consequences, plus the opportunity cost, plus your time, plus your peace of mind. When you add all that up, being cheap is often the most expensive thing you can do. Lost $15,000 trying to save $2,000. Gave myself years of stress and trouble and embarrassment, but I'm glad for it now. Really am. That pipe bursting in my apartment changed my whole outlook on money, forced me to look at my blind spots, forced me to realize I was hurting myself with every smart, cheap move I made, was my own worst enemy, ruining my financial life, one small, smart-sounding, cheap move at a time. Didn't even know I was doing it. That flood was my wake-up call, my catalyst for change. When I figured out what I was doing wrong, everything improved, slowly at first, then picking up speed. Not rich now, not even really financially successful, but financially stable in a way that I never was before. That stability stability, that peace of mind, priceless compared to any amount of money I could have saved by being cheap. Don't worry about money like I used to. Don't freak out when an unexpected bill comes due. Don't make rash decisions out of fear and desperation. Invest in good insurance now. All of it. Take care of things before they go bad. Hire experts when I need them. Spend money on quality when it counts. Pay for prevention. Spend less money than I used to, much less, because I don't want to constantly be dealing with the costly consequences of cheap choices. Just stable, secure, in control. If you see yourself in these stories, if you've canceled insurance to save cash, or ignored that weird noise, or DIY'd something you shouldn't have, I get it. Been there. Was you. Not judging. Have no room to judge. Made every mistake I'm talking about here. But you don't have to learn these lessons the way I did. Can make the shift now, today, before your pipe bursts. Start small. Get the insurance. Fix the thing that's broken. Hire the expert. Buy the quality version. Pay for prevention before you have to pay for cure. Not exciting, not sexy, not even that fun. But it works. Much cheaper than the alternative. Gives you something money can't buy. Peace of mind. When I was younger, I thought being smart with money meant spending as little as possible, finding the cheapest option, cutting every corner, avoiding every expense. Now, know better. Being smart with money means spending wisely, investing in protection, paying for quality, preventing disasters, understanding the difference between price and value. That's the shift. That's the lesson. Your financial well-being isn't determined by how little you spend. It's determined by how wisely you spend. Wisdom costs less than stupidity every single time. You don't have to lose $15,000 to figure that out. You can learn from my mistakes instead of making your own. Please do. Future you will thank you for it. My name is Ryan, and this was the story of how I learned what money really costs.